Welcome aboard, folks, and welcome back to my regular viewers. My name is Rod, and in today's video, I'll be sharing with you my own personal technique on how to organize all the very important numbers that we use every single flight and that change every single flight. Folks, this file will be available for you to download from my website, rodmacio.com, obviously for free, so that you can have this file and use it while you are operating the aircraft. Over the years, it has gone through many revisions as I've transitioned and operated different aircraft, namely going from the Airbus 320 that has a desk, or we call it the tray table, in the flight deck, very nice and spacious, to the MD-88 cockpit, which was a lot smaller, and you have your yoke with the little pad, and the 737, the Boeing 737 is the same case. The yoke has a notepad location. So I had to adjust to make sure that I could fit the notepad on the yoke. The file is the numbers pad, as I call it to you. Just from a top-down general perspective, I did color code it, as I guess you would expect. Green would be the pre-flight and normal operations numbers that we have. Those are the green boxes. The yellow boxes are after weight and balance has been done and prior to takeoff, very important numbers. The red boxes are the souls on board and the bingo fuel. And then, like I said, in the bottom, I do have some of that black stuff as well, which is just important information that you need to know, but not particularly associated with a specific portion of the flight. Once you have printed this out, folks, I do recommend double side printing so that when you cut it up, you'll have basically, 2-in-1, so that it saves a little bit of paper and particularly saves you from having to print as often, which is good, especially having to cut these as often, which is really good. So then, once you have it properly sized, you can use it in the flight deck. Who is this for? Well, primarily it would be for professionals, Part 121 operators of smaller aircraft and larger aircraft, those individuals conducting operations that they would like to, even in general aviation, like to keep your ducks in a row, and perhaps you'd like to change some of the names of these boxes and to suit your need. That would be fine as well. And the hardcore simmers out there, those that are really into Microsoft Flight Simulator and would like to conduct an airline operation inside of the flight simulator environment, this will come in very handy. Now, I would like to share with you what the boxes mean. I'll go through them a little bit quickly, give you a little bit of insight into how they apply to the real-world operations, just as kind of a fun insight into the industry. Right at the top, we have all the times, in and out times, and expected landing times. They are listed in UTC and local. The more time zones that you cross, the harder it gets for you to keep tabs on how long do I have to my destination and how much time have we been flying. All these problems are solved by keeping time in UTC, or Universal Time Coordinated. So we keep this time in this manner so that you take off at 10 in the morning Zulu time, and a flight 6 hours long, you will land at 1600 hours Zulu time. It does not matter which time zone you're landing in. That is your UTC time. That's why all the weather forecasts, all the weather products, and all the aviation times are all Universal Time Coordinated to keep it simple. Then you can convert to local times to communicate with the passengers about how you are relative to the scheduled operation. That's the top line over there, folks. Next, we have block fuel. Fun fact, the absolute majority of flights that transport passengers, and that could be either charter operations, Part 91 jet operations, or just a scheduled Part 121 with the airlines, airplanes never really fly with a full tank of gas. That is your block fuel, is the amount of fuel necessary to conduct this flight, meaning all the FARs, of course. Flight number is next, estimated time en route, pretty self-explanatory. Now, minimum fuel for takeoff, thrust, flaps, maximum takeoff weight, stabilizer trim settings, and your landing weight are all in yellow. These numbers are acquired once their individual departments, the gatehouse has sent the passenger load to the mainframe computer, and the below wing personnel have loaded into the computer all of the bags that have been loaded on board the aircraft and where those bags were loaded. And the fueler has sent its information of how much gas is on board the aircraft and how much gas is in each respective tank. All that information is gathered. Computer pumps out the weight and balance report. Airlines conduct millions of flights a year. To ensure a high level of accuracy, we do need the computer to be executing these calculations. Believe you or not, I did conduct these calculations manually for years and years while operating with the regional carriers back in the day. That was when Continental Express, also known as ExpressJet Airlines, we did a lot of manual weight and balance calculations, which was always fun. You had a lot of numbers that you had to calculate. But nowadays, it tends to be mostly just done by computers, which is nice. So pilots receive the numbers. We do thoroughly check for the integrity of the numbers that we have received. It's not just because the computer spits it out that it's okay. And then we proceed to enter those numbers into our computers. Minimum fuel for takeoff, again, meeting the requirements for the FARs. The minimum gas is different from the block fuel because you have burned that taxi gas. Now, it may not be that much on the absolute majority of flights. However, if you encounter a 45-minute taxi out or 1 hour and a half, 90-minute taxi out time, all of a sudden, that taxi fuel becomes really important. So that's why I have that. Thrust. Most of the times, we are not taking off with maximum power. Please keep in mind that mechanical equipment should always be operated within its predetermined operational range. And the less stress you put on a mechanical piece, the longer it will last. Hence the reason why the question is, how much weight do we have? How long is the runway? How much weight can I take off on that runway? And how much power do I need to take off with that given runway and weight? The variables are a little bit codependent, but essentially that's what it is. So you'll oftentimes be taking off with a reduced takeoff thrust, again, while still meeting all legal FAR requirements and keeping it safe, of course. Flap settings and stabilizer trim settings, pretty self-explanatory. And then we get to the landing weight calculations, which is your takeoff weight minus the burn for the flight. The takeoff weight minus the gas burn for the flight will give you your landing weight. And the objective there is to have the best level of situational awareness possible. Remember, the objective is to conduct a safe operation. So as you're pushing off the gate, you already know what your landing weight will be. That's important because if you're landing close to maximum, Well, you'll already know that you need to manage that appropriately and accordingly throughout the entire flight. It's extremely important building that essay as aggressively and as early as possible in order to conduct a safe operation. So then what do we have here? Destination, cruise altitude, and takeoff alternate. Well, the FARs do say that if you cannot return to the airport that you departed from with a Cat 1 approach, a Category 1 approach, you must have a takeoff alternate. And I break the box into two so that you can list the identifier, and then you can list either the distance or the time to get to your takeoff alternate. Again, it's all about building an optimum level of that situational awareness. Make sure to check out my video on situational awareness where I go in depth into the concept and how to apply it. I also break it down with general aviation examples. It's a great review, and definitely encourage you to go ahead and check that video out. And next up, folks, is the gate, bingo, and destination alternate. Gate, pretty self-explanatory, gate of arrival at the destination. Bingo fuel, we're talking about your expected fuel for landing. That's how much you're going to have if everything goes as planned. And then at the bottom, I typically put the no joke FAR, minimum required gas for landing. And again, that does change drastically depending on your operation and the weather and whatever may be happening. Destination alternate, pretty self-explanatory. Just, again, two boxes there because it'll be one of two situations. One, you have two alternates, or two, you can list your alternate on top and your time or distance to your alternate. That way you know. So I will be arriving at my destination, but my alternate's 45 minutes away. So within a 45-minute ring of flight time at whatever speed may be appropriate for your aircraft, all the airports within that radius are eligible alternates that you can land in, obviously considering aircraft size and airport requirements, but you get the idea. Bottom line, extremely important, though it is kind of a little bit understated. Release, MEL, and ship. The release is referring to the version of the paperwork that you have in your hand. As major things change before you go fly, which sometimes can happen. Sometimes you can have a large fluctuation of expected payload or a weather that was not expected to develop has materialized, so now you need an alternate. So you may end up, especially during fast changing scenarios, with versions 2 or 3 or 4 of your paperwork. That's a lot of paperwork and a lot of printing, but you got to have the current version to go fly. MELs refer to the minimum equipment list or items that can be broken, deferred for your flight, and the procedures associated with those items. As you can imagine, an aircraft has thousands and thousands of items that can effectively be deferred safely due to the level of redundancy that we have. For example, a flight deck map light may be deferred. So you got that little note there in the logbook, and you comply with the procedures, make sure everything is okay from the logbook and paperwork standard point of view, and then just go from there. And then the mighty ship. As it turns out, you actually need to take the right airplane from A to B. Every once in a while, since we conduct so many flights across America, across the world, over 1 million a year during normal operations, every once in a while, somebody will take the wrong airplane to the destination. So it happens sometimes. I mitigate that by writing it down. And while you may think that, that is a crazy notion, how can somebody do that? Well, you have dozens and dozens of gates, hundreds of flights per day out of big airports, right? All of a sudden, it kind of makes sense how you can see how easily this mistake can happen. So I mitigate it by writing it on my notepad, so I have it right in front of me. And last item, folks, we got the souls on board and the flight leader or the flight attendant, that is the point of contact for the captain when he calls or she calls the back. Now, the souls on board is obviously all the crew members and the passengers with all the lap babies, and that is a total souls on board count. It is extremely important to have that. Should you declare an emergency, have that number readily available so that you can tell ATC and you can deal with the next thing that you have to deal with. This is a pretty important number to have readily available, especially during an emergency. It is not the time to be scrambling for paperwork on the flight deck, trying to figure out where is that souls on board count. And then, like I said, the flight leader would be the flight attendant point of contact. If you're operating GA, you can probably maybe write down, just use it as a scratch pad, extra note area over there. It's really small, but, write small enough, you can do it. And that is it, folks. Thank you for being here with me. Again, I use this flight notepad, numbers pad, every single flight. And it is one of those techniques that I've developed over the years that to assist me in creating the very best situational awareness possible to keep that level of safety to a very, very, very high degree. I have shared this file with many of my coworkers over the years, and now I'd like to share it with you. So I hope you enjoy. Head on over to the website, folks. Check it out. Again, it's rodmacio.com. We'll leave a link down below for your ease of access. And I do appreciate you going over and sharing it with your friends. Let somebody know who perhaps is in need of some assistance. They can head on over to download that as well. And folks, as always, until next time, fly safe.